Hi, it's Ur-Quan here, with my first proper guide for the Elder Scrolls Online. The Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood celebration event in ESO has just begun, and I've been hearing from a number of players that they have trouble completing some of the Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood quests. Specifically, the Thieves Guild Heist dailies and the Dark Brotherhood Sacrament dailies. Now, these quests are actually fairly easy if you've got a good stealth setup and you've had a little practice so that you know the layouts of the different locations that you get sent to, as well as so that you understand the timing of the guard patrols. And there are a few other little quirks that you should be aware of. So I've done a lot of heists and sacraments on all of the different classes in the game, and unless I get cocky and stop properly paying attention to what I'm doing, I virtually always complete them with all of the optional objectives to get the maximum rewards. So I thought it'd be a good idea to make a bit of a guide to help teach others the tips and tricks to get good at heists and sacraments. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about here also applies to other stealth-based quests in ESO, but I'm also going to go over some of the specific quirks that only apply to heists or sacraments. I'll put some timestamps in the video description so that you can skip around to any specific topic you may be looking for more information on. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So the first and most important thing to consider when you're doing heists and sacraments is that you're going to want to have a solid stealth setup. Now, Khajiit have a built-in stealth advantage, thanks to the Feline Ambush racial passive. So this lets you sneak closer to enemies before they detect you. But you don't have to be a Khajiit, any race can be more than stealthy enough to do these. Obviously, the class that's most suited to a stealth setup is the Nightblade. Nightblades have access to the Shadowy Disguise skill, which is a morph of the Shadow Cloak skill. Now, that's basically a built-in easy button. It makes you invisible for a few seconds and allows you to walk right past most NPCs completely unseen. Nightblades also have access to the Concealed Weapon skill, which is a morph of Veiled Strike. So by having that skill slotted on your bar, you gain a bonus to your movement speed while sneaking or invisible. And as we'll discuss in a little bit, speed while sneaking is actually the most important thing if you want to successfully complete heists and sacraments. So those skills totally make Nightblades easy mode for completing heists and sacraments. But if you're hoping to be able to do these quests on characters of other classes, don't worry. The right gear makes it easy regardless of your class. You just have less room to be sloppy if you're not on a Nightblade. So when it comes to gear, there are a few things to consider. First off, you want to be wearing as much medium armor as possible. That's because in the medium armor skill line, there is a passive called Improved Sneak. Now, this passive reduces the size of your detection area by 5% per piece of medium armor equipped, and possibly more importantly, it also reduces the stamina cost of sneaking by 7% per piece of medium armor. So even if your character is a magicka build that usually uses light armor, or a tank that usually uses heavy armor, as long as you've leveled up the medium armor skill line enough to have any points in this passive, it's probably worth wearing as much medium armor as possible when you're doing stealth missions. Remember, for heists and sacraments, you're not planning on doing any fighting anyway, unless things go badly, so it really doesn't matter if your gear setup isn't going to be good for DPS. So next we need to consider what gear sets we want to use. As I already mentioned, the most important thing is actually to be able to sneak quickly. So there are a couple of gear sets that eliminate the movement penalty for sneaking. Probably the most easily accessible of these is the Night Silence set, which I'm just going to bring up an example of it here. So the 5-piece bonus for it ignores the movement penalty for sneaking. It's a crafted set, and it only requires knowledge of 2 traits to craft it, so even people who are pretty new to crafting are highly likely to be able to craft it. Most players will probably be able to make it for themselves, but if you don't do any crafting at all, you won't have any trouble finding someone who can make it for you. Now, the crafting stations for it are found in Glenumbra. That's Chill House. Here it is. At Misantho's Tower, Night Silence. And then it's also found in Auridon, over here at High Tide Keep. And it's found in Stone Falls. Where is it in Stone Falls? Ah, here it is. It's Steamfont Cavern. Or, of course, if you know someone who has attuned crafting sets in their home, you can always go and craft it there. You could also use the Shadow Dancer set to eliminate the movement penalty while sneaking, which drops in Green Shade. It's less than ideal, though, because it's a light armor set, and most of the bonuses are Magicka sets. I'm just going to bring up an example of it here so that you can see what it does. See, other than the 5-piece sets, everything is based on Magicka, and it's a light armor set. So less than ideal, but it'll still get the job done if that's what you have access to. Now, of course, if your character is a vampire, then you actually don't need an armor set to be able to sneak at full speed. Because the Dark Stalker passive in the vampire skill line actually makes it so that you ignore the movement speed penalty while sneaking anyway, as long as your vampirism is at stage 4. So we've got sneaking at full speed covered. Now we can consider what other gear we want to use to make things easier on ourselves. Now there are 2 different drop sets that are excellent to either pair with Night's Silence, or if you're a vampire and you don't need Night's Silence, to pair with each other. The first of these sets, probably the better one for our purposes, is the Night Terror set. It's a medium armor set that drops in Stormhaven, and its 3-piece bonus reduces the area at which you can be detected while sneaking, and also reduces the cost of sneaking. So the reason that I say this set is probably better is actually just because you only need to be wearing 3 pieces of it to get the bonuses we're interested in. If you've got 5 pieces of it, and you can easily use all 5 in your setup, you might as well. But if not, you'll still be able to have a good stealth build, as long as you have 3 pieces. One really easy way to farm 3 pieces of Night Terror to get that set bonus is to farm the Dolmens in Stormhaven for a necklace and a couple of rings. Otherwise you can farm chests, delve in public dungeon bosses, world bosses, or just hunt down some pieces for sale in guild stores. They're generally not too expensive if you're not picky about traits. Frankly, we don't really need to be too picky about traits, because again, we're not intending to actually do much fighting, if any, while we're in this setup. The other set that I like to use is the Night Mother's Embrace set. So the 5-piece bonus of this medium armor set is basically identical to the 3-piece bonus from the Night Terror set, as it reduces the radius at which you can be detected, and also reduces the stamina cost of sneaking. Night Mother's Embrace drops in Deshaan. You can farm the pieces of it there, or find pieces in guild stores. Again, it's not generally expensive to buy. If you're looking to buy pieces from guild stores, though, please be aware that pieces of this set are named identically to pieces of the crafted Night Mother's Gaze set. So, for example, boots of both sets will show up as Boots of the Night Mother. Don't accidentally buy a piece of the wrong set, because it's not going to have the desired effect. It's also probably worth mentioning that years ago, this set actually dropped in heavy armor rather than in medium armor. So if you are going to buy it from guild stores, there's a remote possibility that you might find an old heavy armor piece rather than a medium armor piece. There are a couple of other sets that also have some value for stealth, like Dark Stride or Shadow Walker, but overall they're much less useful for heists and sacraments than the sets I've just talked about. So now we've got our gear. If you're not a vampire, you should ideally have 5 pieces of Night's Silence and 5 pieces of either Night Terror or Night Mother's Embrace, along with whatever monster helm set you like. Or just, for that matter, whatever other 2 pieces of gear you want, because we don't care too much about our combat effectiveness, so use a monster set if you want, or if you happen to want to use a head piece of Night Terror or a shoulder piece of Night Mother's Embrace or whatever, go for it. Doesn't really matter. If you are a vampire, then ideally you should have 5 pieces of Night Terror paired with 5 pieces of Night Mother's Embrace. And again, in all cases, ideally we want as many pieces to be medium armor as possible. All 7 if you can. So what should the weapons be, though? As already mentioned a couple of times, we don't really care too much about combat effectiveness. So, to be honest, you can go with whatever you want here, as long as you're getting the set bonuses that we want. Now, having said that, ideally we do want a bow on 1 bar. Doesn't make any difference for heists, but as we'll see when I start talking about sacraments, it can actually be very useful to have a bow equipped and to have the snipe skill, or one of its morphs, slotted on your bow bar. You don't need it, but it's handy. So speaking of the snipe skill, what other skills would we want to slot? I've already talked about a couple of the Nightblade specific skills that are the most useful to slot, and otherwise, for the most part, you can use whatever skills you want. But I would probably focus on skills that'll be helpful for making a getaway if you screw up and get hostile NPCs coming after you. If you're a vampire, Mist Form is nice for that. It can also be nice to have a skill that'll snare or stun a hostile NPC. The most universally useful skill for any class and any build to have slotted for Heists and Sacraments, though, is Rapid Maneuver or one of its morphs. Now that's from the Alliance War Assault skill line. But you don't have to do any PvP at all to unlock it, because it's the first skill in the Assault skill line. All you have to do is go to Cyrodiil for the first time and complete the PvP tutorial quest, and you'll have it unlocked and be able to purchase it. Now this skill is super handy for Heists and Sacraments, because as long as you've got enough stamina to use it, it gives you an extra burst of speed for 30 seconds. So if you've got a timer counting down, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to make it out of there in time, you can pop Retreating Maneuver, or whichever morph you have, and hopefully get out of there. Just be careful, because it actually uses a pretty decent chunk of stamina, and you do not want to drain all of your stamina with it. Remember, you need stamina to keep sneaking. You don't want to use Retreating Maneuver, run out of stamina, and pop out of stealth. Now, we've got a stealth setup here, but if you're on PC, there's an add-on that's actually really useful for creating a stealth setup like this, and that's Dressing Room. What it does is it lets you save a certain configuration of gear and skills slotted on bars, so that you can easily switch between a full stealth setup and your normal setup. See here, I've got my gear set up with my Monster Helm set, 5 pieces of Night Terror, 5 pieces of Night Mother's Embrace, and I've got my bars set up for stealth. I can just, at a click of a button, swap to my normal DPS setup, and swap back to my stealth setup. There are a couple of other things you can consider if you really want to max out your stealthiness, and I know that's probably not a real word. Personally, I don't bother with any of these other things, but the first thing that you can think about is your traits. See, I've just got Robust on my jewelry, but if you use the Swift trait instead, you'll be able to move faster, which is always useful for these types of missions. Likewise, you can use the Steed Mundus, there it is, so that increases movement speed, so again, makes you a little bit faster. Also, if you want, you can use invisibility and or speed potions, but you really shouldn't need to. And I know I don't bother with any of those, and I'm basically always successful with Heists and Sacraments. So that's how you do a stealth build that'll let you do any heist or sacrament at the highest reward tier. Now, the character I'm on right now that I've been using to show you all of this is a Vampire Khajiit Nightblade, so that's pretty close to being fully optimized for stealth. The point of this guide is not just to show you how to do heists and sacraments with a fully stealth optimized character, though. So I'm actually going to swap to another character to get into the details of heists and sacraments. Okay, so the character I'm on right now is my main. This character is an Imperial Dragon Knight and is primarily a PvE tank. Now, Imperials don't have any special passives that help with stealth, and Dragon Knights don't have any special skills that help with stealth, And he's not a vampire because I didn't want him to be all corpseified and gross, so he doesn't get any of the vampire stealth advantages either. What he does have is a stealth setup along the lines of what I've just gone over. He uses 5 pieces of Night Terror gear, so his detection radius is reduced and sneaking costs less stamina, and he uses 5 pieces of Night Silence gear so that he can sneak at full speed. And he's wearing a full 7 pieces of medium armor, so that we're making the most of the improved sneak passive in the medium armor skill line. Now I'm going to show you how, with the right setup, this non-Nightblade can easily complete a Thieves Guild heist without running out of time. I'm just going to pick up a heist from the heist board, and then work to that heist location.
Fresh tip got your interest?
So the heist I got today is Deadhollow Halls. Now, not all of the heists are actually the same level of difficulty. Like Glittering Grotto is the easiest heist by far, but you'll generally be using the same techniques for each heist. The only real difference between them is the layout and the number and type of objectives. There are certain set locations in each heist where objectives can be located. You don't know until you get there which specific locations from that pool of locations will actually have objectives. In most heists, there are more objectives that spawn in than you actually need, so often it's better to skip one that's going to be difficult to get to without being seen. Most objectives require you to pick a lock, so if you've got the Locksmith passive from the Lejardaman skill line, then you can shave off a little bit of time by just forcing locks instead of picking them, but you should have plenty of time to pick the locks as well. Now, before we actually go through that door there to get into the heist location and start the timer, I'm going to go over a few details that apply to all heists. So first, from the second you step foot inside the actual heist location, that's where this little quest marker is here that says enter the tunnels to begin the heist. So from the second you do that, you're on an 8-minute timer. The timer runs out, you can still complete the heist, but it'll be at a lower reward tier. If any of the NPCs inside the heist location spot you, the amount of time remaining on your timer will be reduced by 30 seconds. It's worth noting that if you attack or kill an NPC during the heist, it always counts as getting spotted, even if you sneak up behind them unseen and use the Blade of Woe. Now, all heists have traps in them that you should watch for. Traps are always in the same locations, so with a little bit of practice, you'll remember where they are and you won't have any trouble. The traps can be bear traps, tripwires, exploding traps, or anti-stealth traps. Most of the time, you're better off avoiding them rather than trying to disarm them, but in some locations that's not possible, and you'll just have to disarm them. So all heists also have either some guards with lanterns that will pop you out of stealth, or instead of the guards with lanterns, they'll have some guards that will set temporary anti-stealth traps. Now, in some cases, and actually, if I remember correctly, I think this is one of the heists that has some of those cases. We'll see it when we get there. But in some cases, you actually cannot get down a particular passageway without being within the AoE of guard's lantern. In those cases, there's always a way to get by without being seen, though. So it'll either be a hiding spot that you can get inside and then you just wait for the guard to pass by, or it'll be something that lets you block line of sight between you and the guard, like a bookshelf or a rock formation. So in that case, he'll pop you out of stealth, but he'll never get line of sight to you and won't spot you. Now, if the heist ends up with anti-stealth traps instead of guards with lanterns, then sometimes you'll need to move through the area of the trap, and you'll need to time it so that you pass through in between the pulses of light that will pop you out of stealth. Or if you do it when nobody's looking in your direction, no one has line of sight, then you might get popped out of stealth anyway, but you'll be fine. All of the NPCs in a heist have their own little paths that they'll go back and forth along. And once you get used to a particular heist, you'll know exactly where each NPC is going to go, so you can avoid them much more easily. There's also one boss in each heist. The boss appears partway through the heist, and they'll have a route that takes them him or her through the entire heist location. You'll get used to running into them in certain spots based on your timing, and some of the heist bosses have anti-stealth auras just like lantern guards, and others don't. Now, without further ado, let's pop in there and get this heist done. Now, oh, actually, before I go in, it's worth checking your map before you go in so that you plot out your route a little bit. You won't actually know where any of the objectives are until you're inside, though. On this particular one, Deadhollow Halls, the route that I take is always to go through here, then here, then here, then here, and back out. So it's a simple loop around. I always go in that direction, though, because I've found it to be the most effective. So as soon as I'm in there, as you can see, the objectives just updated. Need to search for the 3 Daedric treasures, and now I can see where they are on the map. So one of them is right there, and I actually hate it when one spawns there, because it can be a little bit iffy to get at without being spotted. In some of these, you can actually be back here, and then you won't get too close to it. Oh, and see, I completely ignored that tripwire there because I was talking. I really shouldn't have let that get me. Now, there should be a guard here. Okay, so I can see that the guards in here today are not lanterns. Often that's a lantern guard, but he instead had one of the temporary traps that pops you out of stealth. Okay, so for this one, I always pop back here and open the strong box from behind this tent, because that guard that you may have seen is going to come by, and this way he won't spot me. That outlaw archer. Now this is a spot where, when the guards have lanterns, can't avoid the lantern. So instead what you do is you hide behind this bookshelf and wait for the guard to come by. Now he's not actually going to pop me out of stealth today, because it's not lantern guards in here today, but it can be. There's a guard. He's going to lay down a stealth trap, an anti-stealth trap, I should say. See, there's a tripwire there. That's the pulse I was talking about with the anti-stealth trap. And I actually don't care too much about avoiding it because his back is to me and he's not going to see me before I can stealth again. But this is another place where if he was a lantern guard, you actually can't get past him without being popped out of stealth. So you hide on this side of the rocks here, and then when he comes back in the other direction, he would pass on the other side of the rocks. You'd get popped out of stealth, but he wouldn't see you. I believe there's another... There's the other Daedric treasure there. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to force that lock, because that guard is going to come back here. You should be able to time it so that you have time to pick it, but why take that chance when I can just force it? See, there was a tripwire there that I jumped over. There's going to be a guard that's going to come back here, but there's a lovely hiding spot here. Just going to wait in there until he comes back. Now again, if these were guards with lanterns, he would have a lantern, and you wouldn't be able to get past him, even if you were on a Nightblade, without hiding in this hiding spot. I mean, he physically has a lantern, but it's not going to pop me out of stealth. Now the other location where an objective can spawn is right here, but in this case it didn't. And I should note, when I mentioned before that most heists actually spawn more objectives than you need to get, this is one of the few that doesn't. This heist spawns in the exact number of objectives that you need to pick up, which is 3 chests. I've already picked up all 3, so I'm just basically following this guy to get back. Back this way. And can just kind of go past him there. I'm going to play it safe and wait for him to start coming back this way. Now this is where I also have to keep an eye out for the heist boss, because frequently will be right around here at this time. Ah, but not today. My timing is a little bit different today than usual. And there we have it. Done with plenty of time to spare. Bonus objective completed. Obtain the treasure before time ran out.
Well done.
And that's how easy it is when you've got a good stealth setup and you know the location well. I'm gonna move on to showing you how to do a sacrament after this, but if you'd like to see more videos that have walkthroughs of each of the other possible heist locations, just let me know in the comments below. Okay, so now I'm here in the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, ready to do a sacrament. Just gonna talk to the speaker to pick up my sacrament quest. Now, there are a few important differences between heists and sacraments that I want to go over before I actually go in there. So, first, a sacrament has more secondary objectives than a heist does. With a heist, the objectives are obviously things that you're stealing, and there's always a secondary objective to beat the timer. With a sacrament, the primary objective is always to kill a specific individual. There are always multiple secondary objectives as well, some of which are common to all heists and some of which vary.
Consider it a bonus, a chance to demonstrate your
So,
skill.
a secondary objective that's common to all sacraments is to not be seen.
Your target awaits in the smuggler's den.
Now, this doesn't actually mean that you can't be spotted by anyone, even though it kind of implies that in the text here that speaker says.
You'll be seen as a
So,
trespasser.
what it really means is you can't be spotted too many times. If you're seen 5 times, that'll be enough to put the complex that you're in on alert, and that will mean that you fail the secondary objective. If you're seen once only, or up to 4 times, you'll still count as completing this objective. It's worth noting that ideally you don't want to be seen even once. Unlike heists, where being spotted just takes time off of your timer, when you're spotted during a sacrament, it will actually give you a bounty. If you're spotted a few times, that can add up. And obviously if you've got a lot of counterfeit, pardon, or whatever they're called, easily get rid of that bounty, but still, it's better not to get it in the first place if you can avoid it. Now, there's a timer to beat for sacraments as well. Unlike the timer for a heist, which is 8 minutes and starts as soon as you step foot in the heist location, timer for a sacrament is only 2 minutes, but it doesn't start until after you've eliminated your primary target. So that means you should always go after your secondary target first. Do not want to miss out on beating the timer just because you're trying to go after your secondary target while time is already counting down. Now, one of the secondary objectives is always to kill the primary target in a specific way. In this case, they're asking me to kill him with the Blade of Woe. The other possibility is that they'll ask for me to use poison to kill them. Now, because of that, you'll want to make sure that you have some poison in your inventory before you pick up a heist. Doesn't really matter what type of poison. It can be crafted, or just some poison that dropped from a mob. It can be any level. Regardless of whether you're asked to use the Blade of Woe or whether you're asked to use poison, though, you're always actually going to want to use the Blade of Woe. It sounds counterintuitive, but if they want you to use poison, all you have to do is have that poison equipped on your active weapon when you use the Blade of Woe, and that will count as killing your target with poison, even though it doesn't even actually use up any of the poison. So there'll always be a secondary objective to go after another target. Usually that target is someone else that they want killed, like in this case, but it can also be something different. It can be an item that they want you to destroy, a Kwama egg, or a flute, or whatever. Or it can be an animal mascot that they want you to kill. Those are the only options that I can think of off the top of my head. I don't think there are any other possibilities for it. So, because of the nature of the different objectives, I'm going to teleport in now, but because of the nature of the different objectives, with a sacrament, you actually want to spend more time planning than you do with heists. With heists, the only planning you really need to do is the route that you're going to take through the heist, because you're on a timer the whole time you're in there, and you don't really want to pause and plan in the middle of it, or at least you want to keep that to a minimum as much as possible. With a sacrament, though, because the timer doesn't start until your primary target is dead, you can and should take your time and plan things out. Most importantly, you want to plan your escape route. Now, sometimes that means you're going to want to kill some inconvenient NPCs before you go after your primary target so that your escape route's clear. So remember, with a heist, with a sacrament, unlike a heist, you can kill as many people as you want. With a heist, you kill someone and it takes time off your timer. That doesn't happen in a sacrament. So you can kill everyone along your escape route if you want to make it really easy for you to get out. Just don't do it too early. The NPCs do respawn if you leave it long enough. So this is also why I said earlier that ideally you want your stealth setup to include a bow and the snipe skill, or one of the morphs. See, there are always lantern guards in sacraments, and sometimes your escape route is going to be easier if you kill them first. Can't just sneak up and Blade of Woe them, though, because the lantern's going to pop you out of stealth and you'll be spotted. If you're behind them and you hit them from stealth with 2 snipes in rapid succession, they should die before it counts as being seen. If 2 snipes is not enough to kill them, then it will count as being seen in terms of the alert status, which you can see over here. But if you're far enough away, it may not count as being seen in terms of getting a bounty. Okay, so I'm just gonna head on in there. Now, one of the things I'm going to check on my map here is which of those is my primary and which is my secondary target. So, Eslandor was my primary target, and Gian Alani was my secondary target, so that means I'm going to want to go here first and kill Gian Alani first. They can be anywhere within their areas, and one of the things about sacraments is that not everything shows up on the map. In each of these locations, each of these complexes, there are some hidden areas that don't show up on your map until you're in them. I believe there's one in here somewhere. Exactly where? I think there's here. There's definitely one here connecting these 2 spots because I always go through it. But rather here. I think there's a hidden area there as well. I don't remember exactly. Just gonna go here. Just like in heists, there are traps in certain specific spots. They're always in the same spots, so when you're used to them, you know where they are, and you can... Now, Lucky there can be a target. He can be, for the secondary target, he can be a mascot that they want you to... I'm gonna get past these people here. I have to be careful about it. If I was on a Nightblade, I could just cloak right past them. I'm not, so I just need to be cautious, not get too close, and trust in my stealth gear to keep me from being seen. Just like that. I think I'm going to want to go this way. Yes. Avoiding the bear trap. Should be a lantern guard down here somewhere. He gone off to the left. Haven't really been paying attention to my timings. Maybe he's off to the right. Oh, he's off to the right. Now with lantern guards, sometimes you can't see the extent of their lanterns until you pop out and back into stealth. He's actually gonna... She? Yeah, that's a she. He's actually gonna come up this way. And, oh hey, look at that. That right there is a hidden area, and I can see that one of my targets is there. That is going to be my primary target, so I don't want to kill this person yet. That's a hidden area that does not show up on the map. If I go inside, suddenly it shows up on the map. And as soon as I'm out, it doesn't show up there anymore. So instead of killing my primary target, I'm going to head over here to where my secondary target should be. And there he is right there. Now, because I haven't killed my primary target yet, I can really take my time here and make sure that I get this kill without seeing. Oh, this is also a good time to make sure I don't have poison equipped, because I'm supposed to use the Blade of War. Head around here. As soon as he turns his back to me, run up and stab him in the back. That person saw me anyway. Oh well. That's okay. Really, I should have been more careful than that, but to be honest, I didn't really care. And the reason I didn't really care is because my alert status was at 0, so I can afford to be seen. Just means I've got a bounty now. Which is not really a big deal. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to wait for that warden to come back and head up to the side there. They should do. Okay. And once they've gone up a little ways, to demonstrate killing them, snipe. Now, this character is not actually built for stamina, so spent too much time talking about what I was going to do. Round. I'm not actually sure if killing them with 2 snipes is going to happen. I want to be at range because of the bow passives that do more damage at long range. Yeah, see, it took more than 2 to get him, or I should say, but it did not increase my bounty. It did increase my alert status, but not my bounty. And with alert status of 2, that's totally... Oh, hey. Turn around while I'm Blade of Warring you. Okay, so now I just need to get out of here. Which is just going right back the way I came. I don't have to worry about that guard there with the lantern getting in my way. I am going to use rapids just to be sure. To be careful here. Out here to make sure I don't get spotted. And there we go. I got a little bit sloppy there, so my alert status was 2 out of 5 instead of 0 out of 5 like it really should be, and I did get a bounty because of being sloppy. Even with that, I completed all of the secondary objectives and ended up with a maximum reward tier. So again, as with the heists, that's an example of how to complete a sacrament with the character that's not a Nightblade. And let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me do a video that shows me going through the other possible sacrament locations. So I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I hope that after watching this, you'll be able to basically be a pro at doing heists and sacraments, and always getting the highest reward tier. Hopefully that's useful for you. And enjoy your heisting and sacramenting? That's not a word, but enjoy going on your heists and killing whoever the speaker tells you to kill. And have fun with the Thieves Guild and Dark Brotherhood event. Bye for now.